One more time, we back. We have another video. This is gonna be like the sequential process to go back into the forums. We did get it squared away, and we're gonna start back with the men's meetings. And then of course, ladies, we're gonna get to you guys, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna do the men and the women's forums together. We want to start this one off. This one is going to be called relationships without the process. We're trying to take the process out of things, especially our relationships. So most people know, if they watch the videos before, they know I like to start off with universal thoughts, things that are connected to relationships, but not that are indirect. This is an indirect connection. We're talking about processes, how processes is in many phases in different places in our life, and how we try to take that process out of what we're doing, and then we end up with complications on the back end. As far as, let's just take our food sources. We have our chickens. We're growing chickens. They call them the 6-week chickens. They're growing them much faster because we're using steroids. Because we're consuming a lot of the chicken a lot faster, they have to produce more chickens quicker in order to keep up with the demand. So we're taking the natural process from having the chickens to be healthy. 1957 through 2005, they did a study on the sizes of chickens, and you can research this. I want you to look it up, test this and try this and test it and see if it's true. From 1957 to 2005, the chickens have tripled in size. It's the same amount of time when they did the study on the chickens, but the only difference was the steroids, because we're taking the process and we're trying to make a bigger chicken faster. The process, we have a mentoring program here in Nashville. My brother Ron Johnson, if y'all saw the last video that came out last Friday, that's the interview I did with that brother. The process that we try to take them through is how to make choices. And we ask them, how can we help you help you? They want to bypass the process of being young people, of being in their position in order, and listening to their elders and trying to grow and mature in stages. They're growing up too fast. So what I did one time, I took some brothers downtown, and I told them, I said, write down what you see on the street. You see a woman with a black dress, write down one with a black dress. If you see a red car, say red car. If you see a big white box truck, say that. So when the brothers wrote down what they saw on the ground level, I took them up to the 20th floor. So when we got to the 20th floor, I asked them, I said, now write down what you see. And then they said, well, we really couldn't see the same things that we saw before. We just see lights, and it's pretty much blurs down there. They saw people, but they couldn't figure out what they were wearing or what really color the car was, because they were up too high. So I was trying to tell them, once you see something at a lower level and you process it from there, then when you go to a much higher level, you can't see the same things that you saw when you were down here. So the process that they went through is seeing something from a different vantage point, from down on the ground level, and then elevating yourself with your thoughts. So it's really about thought elevation. So I'm trying to get them to understand that these relationships that we're trying to build, and the relationships they have with other people, what you will see here is not necessarily what you will see here up on top. That's a process. We want to take our sisters who today are having children. We know that it's a 9-month period for pregnancy. It's the trimesters is what they focus on as a doctor. But now today we're inducing labor. They're doing a lot of C-sections and inducing labor, and we're changing the natural process of childbirth. Now the problem with that is that's a surgery, and of course they are doing it every day, but it just puts the mother and the child under undue stress from a natural process to something that's man-made, to something that's induced. So again, we're trying to change the process, and we need to be careful about changing the process on things that are natural. We need to let them take their course. So we want to move now into relationships. When we first meet somebody, what we try to do in the initial meeting is we try to change the process and how we meet them. Or if we meet them at a club and you want to have a one-night stand, there's nothing wrong with that. But after the one-night stand, if you want to try to move into a healthy long-term relationship, now you can run into some problems, because that person that you met that night, that you had sex with, or you laid up with that night, that was just a one-night stand. And now you're trying to change that process of a one-night stand into a relationship. And then when we move on, if it wasn't a one-night stand and it was a regular meeting and you guys got together, you didn't lay the proper foundation, because that's part of the process. When you're starting a relationship or in a relationship, once you start, you must lay the foundation. That is part of the process. If you do not do that, you'll end up trying to establish a foundation later in your process. This is going to make it much more harder and difficult for you to navigate through this relationship with your spouse or with your significant other. So now, if you meet them and you've laid the foundation, a lot of times through the process, we forget that we need to not take the spouse for, our wife or husband or spouse for granted. We get to that second stage and we start taking an individual for granted. And we forget the process that we've laid the foundation. We started doing things so they could respond to it. And this is what made them like you, fall in love, or engage you in this relationship. And then the third part is if we end up losing the individual because we changed the foundation, or we didn't lay a foundation, or we didn't follow the proper process. At the end, when it breaks up, if it breaks up, then we really miss that person that we were with because we didn't follow the proper process. So this video is really just speaking to process. We want to be careful about changing processes. Everything, just because it can be changed, doesn't mean we need to change it. So we need to look at the process. We need to understand we got a foundation. We have two people involved. What was that initial agreement? You need to stick to that. And once you get the agreement, you don't want to start taking that individual for granted because you're getting what you want, or he or she is getting what they want. And then you take them for granted. So then in the third process, if we neglect those first two steps in the process, the end is coming probably pretty soon. So after we break up with the person, and then we really see what we had, and then we look back over the process and we see what we could have done better or where we went wrong. So we want to understand the process from conception to completion. When you meet him or her, we want to first lay that foundation, and where you both agree on the road that you're trying to travel so that you can have a healthy, viable relationship. Okay, now that was it for the video. So we want to understand that we're going to start our men's meeting this Sunday. So ladies, we're going to get back into the research piece. So I'm going to step aside and we're going to start doing some research so that you can hear the brothers sound off. We're going to take this, and those will be the posts. So I want you guys to get the email. It's all, if you subscribe and you like and comment, when you go down there, you can drop us an email or you can give us a phone call, because we're eventually going to start moving back to having the men and women's forums. But that's probably going to be after we hold the men's forum separately and after we hold the women's forum separately, and then we'll come back and we'll do the men's and women's forum together. So I want to, thank you, Miss Jada in Memphis. Thank you for being patient and waiting on that. I know you wanted to see that coming. We got Rob D. Thanks, Rob. Rob been to every forum that I've had in Nashville, at all the men's meetings. He's been there for me. Shout out to that brother. We got a plethora of other people that were waiting for this, so it's coming. And we want to thank you for your patience. It was timely trying to put it together, but we're here. So we want you to take this information. We want you to try this information. We want you to test this information. We want you to take it to the job or take it to the barbershop. Take it to the hair salon or take it to the church. This is the Clipperdome Chronicles. Thank you.